Solar activity may be picking up, but the sun's aim continues to be poor. Those stories and more in the news this week. If you want to learn how weather from our star causes impacts at the Earth that shape the future of our world, join Professors Dr. Jenny Meehan, Michael Cook, and myself as we guide you through a space weather certificate program like no other. To enroll in the Space Weather and Environment Science program offered at Millersville University, go to millersville.edu/SWEN. It's weather for the 21st century. This forecast also sponsored in part by CW Ops. Space weather this week picks up just a little bit in activity. As we take a look at our Earth-facing disk, there are actually no less than 8 active regions in Earth view, and a couple of these regions are firing big flares, but just barely R1 radio blackout level. In fact, region 3272, which is the one that we were expecting last week to really give us some activity, is kind of quieted down. Taking its place has been region 3280. That one's picking up. And then there's a couple regions on the east limb, mainly 3281 and 3282. Those have been picking up in activity and are giving us some decent sized flares. But if you notice, it's all on the east or the west sun. Right about in the center sun, it's kind of a dead zone. In fact, when we talk about big solar storms being launched, there haven't been too many. The most notable was back on the 15th. You can actually see this filament eruption kind of launch gently up to the north. Right about the same time, you kind of see something going off to the east and something going off to the west. And so sadly, that's been the case. We don't really have any Earth-directed anything right now, so it's kind of a hurry up and wait mode. Meanwhile, as we take a look at our far-sighted sun, this is stereo A, and it's looking at the sun just a tiny bit from the side. You can see that kind of dead zone right there. That's the one that we're basically staring down in the center sun right now. That should orient you. And if you take a look at the east limb in stereo's view, well, you do see a few active regions that are going to be rotating into Earth view here over the next day or two. So that's definitely going to keep that solar flux boosted and keep us easily in the 170s. But I'm not noticing any real big activity, not huge solar flares, not big solar storm launches. So it looks like we're going to continue with about the same, maybe a little bit of percolation of R1 radio blackouts, but not too much. And that solar flux is going to stay high easily for another week. Switching to our moon, we are now passing through the third quarter phase on our way to a new moon, with the new moon being on the 20th. So you night sky watchers, if you want to catch those dim objects in the sky, like, I don't know, maybe the Lyrid meteor shower that's beginning now and will peak on the 22nd into the 23rd, well, the moon is pretty dim right now, so it's a perfect time to go catch it. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, well, we've had a lot of wispy solar storm launches pretty much to the east, to the west, and to the north of us. So what this means is we're going to have a lot of little glancing blows hitting Earth, but nothing super substantial. Nonetheless, it might be able to bring a little bit of a show to high latitudes. In fact, NOAA is expecting up to active conditions at high latitudes with even about a 35% chance of a major storm, and this could happen easily as we move into the 19th and possibly even through the 20th, simply due to these very wispy solar storms that are kind of hard to tell whether we're going to get much going at all. Now, mid-latitudes, of course, the story isn't quite as good. We're only expecting unsettled conditions, but we do have up to about a 10% chance of a minor storm. Again, this is kind of weak, so I wouldn't really expect all that much for you aurora chasers. Only if you're dedicated might you get something, and only if you're at the high end of mid-latitudes. So most obviously things are going to be pretty quiet. We do have that quiet moon, that dark moon, so you might get a little bit of a better show, but for the most part, if you're an aurora photographer at mid-latitudes, you might want to sit this one out and wait for a better show later. Switching to your solar flare and dayside radio blackout outlook over the coming week, well, we do have 8 active regions at least on the Earth-facing disk this week, and that is keeping that solar flux boosted well into the triple digits. In fact, we're sitting right around 170s to almost 180s right now, and that's easily going to continue over the rest of this week because we do have new regions that are going to be rotating into Earth view from the sun's far side. So dayside radio propagation should stay in the good range. Meanwhile, we do have a couple big flare players. This is mainly region 3280, 81, and 82. They are boosting that flare risk. In fact, NOAA is giving us about a 40 to 50% chance of M-class flares at an R1 to R2 level radio blackout over the next few days, and about a 5% chance of X-class flares at an R3 level radio blackout. And these are likely going to continue over this next week and not really diminish all that much because we do have those new regions that are going to rotate into view. So this does mean that big radio blackouts are still on the menu. Like right now, we're just getting the small pops here and there, but they're likely not going to go away, and this means continued radio noise on the bands. And GPS users, be aware near dawn and dusk that your GPS reception could get a little bit dicey. Switching to our radiation storm and polar aviation outlook over the coming week. Well, right now, everything is in the green when it comes to radiation storms. We're really quiet at the moment. We're in the D1 normal range, which is also the S0 range for radiation storms. We do have about a 5% chance of an S1 to S2 level radiation storm, and that's mainly because we have a couple active regions with decent flare potential. In fact, one of those regions, region 3280, is actually rotating to the sun's west limb right now, and that, of course, causes that radiation storm risk to rise just a little bit. So over the next few days, we are expecting about a 5% to be the norm. And also, we do have active ICAO Space Weather Advisories. So if you are a pilot or a drone flyer, please be sure to check those advisories often. So the space weather this week is picking up just a little bit. Now we are kind of in a dead zone right now, so we don't have any real Earth-directed solar storms, but they are launching to the east, to the west, and to the north of us, which means we could get some glancing blows here over the next couple days. So aurora photographers, if you're at high latitudes, you could get maybe a little bit of a show, especially around the 19th and possibly into the 20th before things calm down. But if you're a aurora photographer at mid-latitudes, well, it might be better just to sit this one out and wait for something bigger. Now, amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, we do have a few active regions that do have big flare potential, so we are getting R1 to R2 level radio blackouts, but you know, the risk for those big blackouts, the R3 level, are pretty low right now, so we're not expecting too much there. But we do have quite a bit of noise on the bands. You're going to have to expect moderate noise level on the day side, because that's just the way we have it when there's lots of active regions in Earth view. So enjoy the boosted propagation this week as the solar flux remains high, but just kind of have to deal with a bit of the noise on the day side. Now, we move to GPS users. Well, you know, GPS users and drone pilots, be sure to be careful around dawn and dusk, because we are still getting those R1 to level radio blackouts, and that could cause your GPS reception to be a little bit dicey. And of course, if you are a pilot, be sure to check those ICAO Space Weather Advisories often, because they are out. I'm Tamitha Skov, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.